Moscow. I've been watching shit out of it.
That was crazy. I lived diamond
I lived on the Taylor Whites, all those apartments right
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Tiffany, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Garby. Present. Councilman Brennan.
Present.
Councilman McCain.
Present.
Councilman Stokes.
Present.
Mayor Sykes.
Present. Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum for the Monday, November 28, 2022 meeting. Run down to department head comments. I'm going to start out with someone special that I always forget about, Betsy Hiddleston.
I'd be first. I thought I'd be last.
You wanted me to save the best for last.
Oh, I see what you did there. Oh wait, yes, I did want you to save the best for last. Okay.
Which is why you're first.
Shots fired. Okay, first on my agenda, personally victimized by the lawyer.
That's the first time anyone's ever said that.
Diligently working on Christmas parade that is coming up as Tiffany and Paula work on decorating the park. I've been working on getting parade entries. We're at 17 entries right now, which is 3 more than last year, so that's exciting. It'll be this Friday. Parade kickoff is 6:30. We will escort Santa through 2nd Street, take a left on 4th, and down Main Street to go to Railroad Park, where we'll do the tree lighting ceremony. I've also invited, I think council's all received the email inviting you guys to judge, and that'll be at Mountain Home Pro with base leadership as well. We've also been I've been working with Community Canvas to get a proclamation to the governor, officially naming us Idaho's mural capital. We've got the proclamation into them. We are just waiting on the signature and due process on that. I feel like there's so much more, and I'm gonna write notes before next Monday.
I'm so sorry.
I just got so used to not being called out. And then you just told me, and I was like, I don't have time to grab my notes or my agenda. We just released Paula's podcast. We did an episode with Miss Paula. Coming up next will be Miss Idaho Elementary and Miss Idaho High School. Me and Brock recorded with them a few weeks ago, and it was a lot of fun. They're both Mountain Home residents. Mountain Home High is a junior in high school, and Miss Idaho Elementary, I believe, is in kindergarten or 1st grade. So that'll come out next week, and we're ramping up the end of season 1, as Brock calls it. So after then, we'll have one more release, and then we'll go into 2023 for season 2. And I will have more on Monday. I'll have my notes prepared. I'll have a file like Mr. Urquidy has.
There's nothing there.
It's just for show.
It just makes them look official. It's fine.
Awesome. Thanks,
Okay.
Betsy. Let's start with Brock.
All right. So, in community development, our main priorities for this month of December is obviously, once we get to that point, is the master transportation plan, RQ, getting that out to people, and getting a partner to help us with that, and hopefully we can accomplish that. Next year, it's going to be a big effort. It's all hands on deck. The best way to describe it, it is a mini comprehensive plan, essentially. So, I look forward to doing that. Part of that effort is we will have a advisory group, which helps provide recommendations. This will have representatives from the school district. I'm hoping to reach out to former members of our traffic group that we had as well. Emergency services personnel. I'm going to try to get someone from P&Z, and if anyone here is very passionate about transportation, I invite you to play a proactive advisory role on that group. We get such a better product when it comes to finalizing it and bringing it towards the bodies by getting a lot of buy-in and a lot of really great insight from the get-go. The next thing, the Rail Industrial Park update. I'm hoping that will be given to you before the end of the year. The private landowner, Mr. Wheats, he has secured some significant partnerships on his end, and they have been refining their vision for that area. And they want to bring that vision to the city council to make sure they're going in the right direction of what they're thinking and what their future efforts for that park look like. Again, I'm hoping that we get that to you presented before the end of the year, perhaps our second meeting in December. if we can't meet that, then it has to be one of those January meetings. And then touching on the Parade of Lights that's happening that Betsy is diligently working on. I've spoken to the mayor, and we're actually going to live record the parade for the first time. Myself with Chris Curtis, the assistant city planner, we're going to set up a little booth downtown, and we're going to live record it and provide very nice and family-friendly commentary. So those who have lived in a mountain home before and have perhaps moved away and they want to see it, that they can have it and that we can market that great component of our community. So those are the major items that are coming up. Again, if any of you guys have any questions, you can come to my office directly. My last thing, by the end of this month, I'm going to have a big community development department update. You guys have received those in the past. This one's going to be pretty full. It's going to take into account everything that we've had this fall commercially and also residentially, and it will be pretty in-depth. So look forward to that coming your way.
Thanks, Bob. Shasta?
Mayor, Council, we have coming up as far as programming, we do once a month family history group, and I just wanted to add along with that, it's every first Wednesday of the month, 5:30 to 7. And we actually were able to purchase a library subscription for Ancestry.com, so library card holders will be able to access that database as well, as well as military records of deceased personnel for their family history. On the 8th, we have family game night from 6 to 8. We'll get out all the board games from our collection so that people can play. Our knitting group has been, they decided to change their name to Chatty Crafters. Since not all of them knit, some of them do other crafting. And then we also have the Western Idaho Open Chess Tournament on the 10th. Check-in is at 9 a.m. And call us for more info if you want to register for that event. For the 9th, as far as kid programming, Santa and the Grinch will be visiting the library at 5:30 till 7:30. So you're welcome to bring family as well as cameras to take pictures with Santa. And the Friends of the Library purchased books to give away to every kid who attends that event. And then, just so you know, I am working on the end of the year statistics for the state report, and I'll make sure to give you all a copy of that.
Thank you. Hank?
It's going good. We're slowing down a little bit on the permit aspect of it. We did get a set of plans for the Marriott Hotel, on top of the hill, another hotel. Code enforcement's transitioning from weeds to yard waste with leaves and snow and whatnot. Everybody's busy.
Chief Moore?
Mayor, Council, on the Friday night, the 19th of November, the fire department responded to a significant structure fire here in downtown. It was fully involved, two-car garage attached to a single-family residence, split-level home. Fully involved when we got there. We had several exposures, and we're out there by way of cars, motorcycles, and things like this. The whole front of that place was on fire, including those exposures. Unfortunately, in the process, the homeowners lost a couple of their pets. They succumbed to smoke inhalation. That was unfortunate. A lot of the house was spared from direct flame impingement and so forth, so that's good on that level. We did get money from our burnout fund and provided them with funds for that. We always appreciate the ability to provide that. People just get really overwhelmed when they receive funds for that. Put them up in the Couple Nights Hotel, and they're currently staying in temporary housing and so forth. So we're working with them, and we'll be looking for records requests coming very soon from their insurance and so forth for that. We responded with 3 engines in the tower, 24 firefighters, so staffed well. As far as the fire process, everything went well. By way of good news, did not have a chance to talk to the mayor about this yet today, but received an email through
Jamie?
Jamie this morning on that Leary firefighter grant. We received, we were awarded that grant, so that's a good deal. There's no cost match to that or anything, so that's just like found money. So Jamie, big kudos on that. That's something that she found and just kicked over our way. Hey, will this work? And so just through teamwork and that sort of stuff, got it through and got the award, so that's a good thing. The last thing that I have is excited about this. Got with Mayor Sykes and talked to him about this last week or week before. I was off last week, so I'm losing track of time. But in an effort for me to improve as a fire chief, looking for ways to improve on leadership and so forth, I came across something that, by way of looking through it, looks like something that the whole department will be able to benefit from. And it's a leadership training thing. It's a year-long program that we have. He can tailor this to our type of department. He's developed this training system to work for hundreds of departments around the nation. James Rowland is his name, and seems to be a nice guy. But they work with executive development, an officer's workshop, a national company leadership that you can take advantage of it for 1 week, month. You have several opportunities throughout the day to attend some online training and so forth for leadership stuff. They start out by doing what I found to be a little bit scary, a department cultural survey. So this department is still going through that, so they're talking to everybody in the department. I believe, I'll follow the personality test they do. So it's kind of neat in the fact that you can go to all these different things. We've all attended them, how to respond to different generations and all this and all that. This gives a kind of a neat perspective on that, and things that maybe you can do as a leader to make better communication, communicate what you want done and so forth. As simple as that sounds, over time, so that they get it. And the exciting part I think about that is as the future leaders come up, much like Chief Thompson was talking about on his department. So developing those future leaders is I found to be a bit of a challenge, and I think this thing will get us in a step in the right direction. So really looking forward to that. It's also got a video library that we'll have access to. This is just a multi-million-dollar video library that we'll have access to. So sky's the limit. You get out of what you put into it, and we've got a pretty high bar the tarp set on this thing. So looking forward to that. That's all I have.
Thanks, Chief. Chief Thompson.
Mayor Council, shopping top event on the 19th seems to be a good success. We don't have hard numbers yet, but the mayor staff says that this event this year was much better attended than the one last year. It was extremely busy. At one point, the restaurant had about a 30-minute wait point, even with empty tables, just because the kitchen was so backed up. It was extremely well attended by the public and by the department. Very happy to turn out there. We currently are in the recruiting phase for lieutenant's positions. That will close tomorrow afternoon at 5 p.m. I've heard through the grapevine I've got 3 internal applicants that I'm very excited about. I don't know about outside applicants yet, but I'm looking forward to talking to Tiffany on Wednesday morning to find out more about these applicants. And the last thing we have is we've got one officer who's graduating the post-basic academy on December 9th. We're looking forward to him coming out, starting his field period and getting out of the streets for us.
Fantastic. Chief and I got to spend some QT today. Went to Nampa at the Treasure Valley Partnerships with all the mayors of Treasure Valley, all the way out to Notice, Parma, and then all their chiefs as well, talking about the fentanyl and the gangs and all that good stuff. So it was a good time, good turnout. Actually, it was really well. The turnout was very well. A lot of great information. Of course, I'm sure Chief got tired of me asking him a bunch of questions about cop stuff. So, but it was good. So I appreciate you going there with to Nampa with me. Well, actually, he drove, so I was the passenger. But it was good. A lot of things that I don't know that I got to learn about. So there's more questions to follow, I'm sure, and Chief will hopefully answer them. Rich.
Mayor, Council, streets departments, they were out with some sanders this morning trying to get some slick spots, so they're ready for just doing that type of stuff. They've been
they've been pretty heavy getting the Christmas stuff going each day, and then getting the sanding and doing some things like that for that. Water department, again, it's not slow, but I mean, they've been working on some services, fixing some things that didn't get done from the summertime. So we always have services every time we do shut-offs and turn-ons and things like that. They find things. So most of our wells are shut down. I think we have three wells run at the most at one time, and then we have some other ones that can kind of go, but mostly just one well's run at a time. Same thing, wastewater. They getting their all their information in for their annual report that they have to do for the farm. So they're getting all that stuff in, and just again getting winterized and getting everything just to keep things running. So that's really about all that's going on in public works wise. I don't have an update for you on the well. We're still trying to get a time to get to get it retested. So just working on those things. So.
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan?
Yep. I appreciate your comments about the wells that are operating right now, and what goes through my mind when you say that is really trying to paint the picture of how little water the city of Mountain Home uses when it's not irrigation season, and how much water irrigation for city and agriculture uses, and how much we're pulling out in the wintertime. Just goes through my head. Thank you.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Garvey?
I also want to say thank you for talking about the sewer lagoons, because we never talk about the sewer lagoons. And quick question, how full are they right now? Where are we at?
I didn't get an update. I didn't look at it today.
Sorry, I put you on the spot on that one.
Yeah, usually I get.
Okay, hey, bring it to the next meeting.
I will. Yeah, I mean,
we don't talk about it.
I know. I would say we're less than 200 million gallons. So I know that's probably where we are. So but we'll start building that up, and probably by the end of winter time, when it's time to start building up, we'll be 350,000 or 350 million gallons somewhere in that area. So again, we bring in about 1 million gallons a day. So even in the wintertime, so that's kind of where we are. Tiff.
Mayor, Council, we're just answering all the audit questions that have been coming in, and then working through the year-end stuff. We did do the pool field trip last week?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, the week prior. That was really exciting, full of a ton of knowledge and information. So we're just kind of coming back. We're going to meet with a couple other people, hopefully tomorrow or the very next day, and kind of fine tune that down and clarify some contract information with legal. And then we may end up having a special meeting to get that project moving forward or not. So if not, it will be on December 12th without a doubt. So, and then if you guys can add in your motion on the bills to pre-approve MSBT laws charges. They went to an online, like, automated invoicing system, and our email rejected him out.
Good email.
Yeah, top security, right?
A few ex-girlfriends like that too.
So he would like to be compensated for November. So that's all I have.
Tiffany mentioned we are working through the audit. We've been working with our auditors since mid-September, getting them documents. And then next week, the main auditors will be here. And generally, they pick a council member to call and ask some questions to, or they'll come and talk to the mayor. So they used to call Mr. Kiwi every year. So expect that. And then the holiday, the parade, we have holiday specs here at City Hall. They're little 3D glasses. They're super cool. And if anybody in the public wants some, just stop by City Hall during our business hours. If anyone out here wants some tonight, I will happily give you some. That's all I got.
Okay. Who wants to talk?
Cats.
Within the last month and a half, 2 months, we've been really working hard to get everything up to Taco Bell, getting our conduit in there. We've got a chunk kind of, I think it's on the East 8 that just rock solid, it's 200 feet. We got to get trenched. So we're going to talk with Vermeer about doing like a, kind of like a trial for one of their rock saws. They'll come up and basically show it off and get 200 feet done for us. So, and then we have Some new residential moving in up in Morning View that we didn't realize we're moving in quite yet. So we've been busting butt trying to get over there. We had to get about 1,300 feet drilled over there. So we've got all their drop lines put in and conduit and boxes and stuff. So
That's what we're working on.
Okay. The only thing I've got, Miguel texted me, said that the bridge is completed. They're just gonna clean it up around the bridge. It should be open today or tomorrow for sure. The rails are up, so the walking path is operable again. And thank you to all the people that help with Christmas. It doesn't go unnoticed, and definitely it's a lot of work. We have we call it the Christmas garage, and the Christmas elf here will steal the key every once in a while, but we have a lot of Christmas stuff, and so we want you to come down Friday night, be a part of it, make a memory, bring your families down. We have selfie pods. Definitely take pictures, enjoy yourself. There's a lot of work that goes in by the city crew that puts that up. I'm a weenie, only lasted one day, and then I got sick, and so the rest of the crew had to pick up the slack for my lack of being able to go the next day. But they take a lot of time and they take a lot of pride in it. And when you go down there and walk it's beautiful and it's magical, and that's what we want our citizens to have is a magical, wonderful place. And definitely come out Friday night. We're going to light up the big tree. We're super excited and super stoked. And it's actually with the Facebook, or not Facebook, like virtual live or whatever. We want to show the citizens that moved on or probably going to school somewhere else that Mountain Home still does the cool stuff like we did in the past. So that'll be a huge win for the citizens. If you can't make it out, maybe you're under the weather, but you still want to see the festivities. Council, make sure that you give me the #1 slot for the Tin Lizzies. Just throwing a plug in there for that. But everyone's pitching in, and everyone wants this to be a great event. So I appreciate everyone that is involved. I appreciate Betsy. I appreciate the city staff that has been out there in the cold and the rain and the nasty putting that together. So if you see them, thank them. It doesn't go unnoticed, but it's a lot of work that they don't get a lot of praise, but it's a lot of work. And every year with the Festival of Beers, every single dime of that money, knowing that we sell sin, I guess, for Christ, right? For Christmas. So, but I want you guys to know that Festival Beer definitely goes to the Christmas displays at Railroad Park or at Carl Miller Park. And but just please come on out Friday night. Council, got anything real quick?
Yeah.
Councilman Brennan.
Real quick. Brock, Fiber Guys mentioned Taco Bell, and I've had like a million people asking. Do we know an opening date for them?
So they have been going up pretty fast. I don't know if any of you guys have been able to go to Dutch Bros or shop at Grocery Outlet. Pretty good looking Taco Bell. We're really excited about it. From the best of my knowledge it's one thing to build the building, but they also have to staff it. I saw some recent banners and posters that they had out there saying that they are hiring. I haven't had any direct correspondence with that management team. I would expect for it to open until early next year, just because of the staffing that they have to get on and do. But that is our projection at this time, without speaking to the developer directly. But I do know that they have made some awesome progress lately, and the building, I believe the building should be complete by the end of the year.
Are they waiting for fiber to? Is that a minimum requirement before they open?
A minimum requirement. Well, it's a requirement that we definitely want to ensure that is fulfilled.
Sure.
I don't believe that will be the issue in order for them to open. I think that we'll have fiber there with plenty of time before they actually open the building to the public and they actually start their occupancy.
Okay.
If it's any consolation, the manager has been doing their interviews in the library, and she has been consistently doing interviews before Thanksgiving.
Wow. Great.
And also I know of two people that have been hired that are in training in Boise.
Oh, great.
So I think they're just trying to finish it up. So.
And thanks. I had one final question. Fire chief, I I don't know if you were planning on sneaking out, but if you were, can I ask you to stay to our last new business item for some questions? Thanks.
All right. Yes, council. All right. We'll run down to conflict of interest and declaration. Has any council member received information pertaining to or otherwise had any contact, otherwise had any contact with any person regarding any items on this council agenda? If so, please set forth the nature of contact. Hearing none.
Mayor.
Councilman Brennan?
Yeah. I have had contact with somebody related to item number 5 on new business.
Okay.
Mayor,
Councilman McCain?
myself also.
Okay. Run down to the consent agenda. Council, you want to poll, ask questions on A through J? And then Tiff, you said you wanted to amend something on the bills?
Yeah,
B?
just add prepay to MSBT law, please.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey?
just some verbiage on I. And Jamie possibly. Let me find it.
That was the
Yes,
setbacks.
sorry, yeah, here we go. Through interlineation, I would like to add, on page 7, I'd like it to match the verbiage on page 8, item 1. It's vague on page 6. Paragraph 6, excuse me, with minor design reconfigurations. And then it's more specific on page 8 of what we actually asked for.
Mayor.
Councilwoman Brennan?
I totally agree with that. Can I add that page 8, paragraph 1 also just needs a slight verbiage change to it. There was a typo essentially, but it would say within there, share their southern boundary with no more than 2 single-family residential lots. You agree?
Yes, I'm sorry, I should have said that.
That's okay. Matched out what she said.
Council, you have any other corrections, comments, or pull anything? Hearing none.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Stokes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with some minor edits for B, prepaying MSBT law, and edits to item J, or I?
Aye.
I. To Councilwoman Garvey and Councilman Brennan.
I think it's I and J.
I and J. That Councilwoman Garvey and Councilman Brennan talked about.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman McCain?
Aye.
Councilman Stokes?
Aye.
All right. Run down to old business, action item, deliberation decision to waive fiber hookup fees for the Mountain Home Senior Citizen Center. Council, what do you want to do?
Mayor?
Councilwoman Garvey, sorry.
All right, so as hard as a decision it is for me to say this because I know that the Mountain Home Senior Center financially needs help. I think if we open up this box, which I've said this before, with every other waived fiber installation fee, we're going to have to do it for everybody else. And we have to pay our loan back. So that's my quick thoughts on that.
Councilman Brennan?
Question for legal too. I may have asked this before. Sorry, I don't remember the answer if I did. But if we were to waive this, does that mean that fee gets put into everybody else that's a part of LID number 1?
No.
Ultimately, who pays it if it gets waived?
The waiver.
City.
I mean, it's the city ultimately.
It's the general fund essentially.
Yeah.
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan?
is there a representative from the senior center here?
No, you asked for a letter. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Based on the letter that they wrote, they talk about time constraints. I'm curious if there's a meet in the middle here that everybody could win. That maybe we waive it for this budget year, but ask them to make payments to us to ultimately to pay off the debt, so that the general fund or the citizens don't have to pay for it entirely. Is that, I don't know if that's a possibility. Obviously, there's no one here to ask that of, but nobody else had any thoughts?
Mayor.
Councilwoman Garvey?
So I guess in thinking of this in long term too, when they needed a new oven, they had a fundraiser. And they paid for that oven. That oven was a lot more than the fiber hookup fee. So, I mean, I think there's workarounds other than us just waiving this fee, because if we waive it once, we are going to get a lot of people that ask. You know, I'd be happy to donate personally to them, but you know, they like I said, with things like the oven, they had to have a fundraiser, and it worked successfully. It took them a little bit, but just a thought.
So Councilman Brandon, what do you mean meet in the middle, like 50%?
No, I mean the entire fee, but give them time to pay it. Because they talk about a time constraint in this letter, where they need it now before tax season comes around. And so if we could work an agreement that, like, we'll front the bill, but they've got to have us paid back within the next budget cycle or this current budget cycle. Give them the service that they need now, but recoup the cost to the citizens over time.
Mr. Mayor, you'd want it in this budget cycle. Otherwise you're creating debt that you want to push forward.
And that would take us to September 30th, right?
Yeah, September 30th, you
And-
want it paid.
And I tend to agree, like, with so much time to raise $2,200, I think that would be pretty easy. But I'd like to provide that service, but I'm with Councilwoman Garvey that I think the general citizens need to
Mr. Mayor?
not foot the bill entirely.
Councilman Stokes?
The letter mentions this AARP tax aid program. Talks about a minimum speed of 20 megabytes per second, I think. It says they're operating at 2.5. I was wondering if that plays in somewhere. It's too bad someone's not here to ask that question. But my thoughts align with Councilwoman Garvey and Councilman Brennan. I'm wondering if we can just put our due date to September 30th, 2023. That might be the meet in the middle.
And Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. Or Councilwoman Garvey.
Also, I just kind of thinking long term too. I don't think it would be wise of the city to start having installment plans. We're not a bank, right? I mean, here's your date to pay us, but entering into a contract, then we're also going to open up another whole thing where people could say, well, you did it for the senior center, why can't you do it for us? Here's my $5 a month, and let's just get it paid and done.
And currently, I don't think we allow anybody to installment.
Yeah, I just don't think that it's more work for the city staff,
Okay.
so.
All right. So I got a motion, or what do you guys want to do?
Mayor?
Councilwoman Garvey?
I will make a motion that we, correct me if I'm not saying this correctly, we give them the access or the fiber that they need now, but it has to be paid by September 30, 2022. In full. Excuse me, 23. We've passed 22.
It's okay, it's very confusing.
Can I seek clarification
Yeah.
on that?
Councilman Brennan?
So it sounded like we kind of went away from installments. Are we asking them just, you have one opportunity to pay? Write us the full check at once, anytime before September 30th?
Is that best for the city staff and your budget?
So you want us to hook them up But with the caveat, you will pay no later than September 30th.
Correct.
And then we turn you off if you don't pay. Even though they're hooked up.
I don't know, how does that work? I mean, that's something maybe we need to know more about.
So this is the hookup fee. This is literally getting it from the box to their place. Now, the onboarding is where they go and put the VBG, they get the point-to-point and all that good stuff, and they control who can get on, who can get off. But the hookup fee, this is just to hook up to the fee, just hook up into the system. So.
Councilman Kane?
I thought you didn't want to do this, to give them a chance to pay later, because everybody else was, what are we gonna do when somebody else comes up and says, well, I don't wanna pay until September?
It's a very good question. It's meeting in the middle. It's a very good question.
Tiffany?
Mayor, council, my concern is if we push it out to September, does the price of diesel go higher than $5.25? And is this the set dollar amount? Or could we charge them solely the equipment cost and not our internal labor? We do a lot for the senior center. We plow their snow. We take care of their flower beds. We tend to do a lot there. So I was wondering if maybe that could be that meet in the middle. They purchase the equipment, which is a total of about $520.
Right now?
Yeah.
And then something else later or nothing else later?
I would say the city would absorb the labor costs and the diesel cost of the equipment for our staff to just hook them up. Just throwing it out there.
I'm nervous as well about I think I say this a lot, the slippery slope, or we're creating a precedent. I always tend to think that way, so legal? How does precedent work? I think you've told us in the past that one decision for us doesn't handcuff us to everything in the future, but.
That is correct. That is my legal answer. I certainly understand political pressure, where you're doing it for one and you're not doing it for another. The only time you ever get into trouble with something like a decision like that is if you're excusing one and compelling another to pay for an improper purpose. Because you don't like their religious beliefs or their racial, all the buzzwords. That's the only time it would be improper. Something like this, no, not at all.
So I got another bite at the apple here. What if our great librarian wanted us to hook up the library? Would you guys allow us to hook up the library at no cost, other than?
One councilman is not.
I'm for that.
That's a city entity.
My thing is I've always believed if you take care of your young and your seasoned, I'm not gonna call them old, you seasoned people, then all the people in the rest of the mail, we should be able to take care of each other. I will go out on a limb here. I will give, if you guys meet me in the middle, I'll give $1,000 to hook them up if you guys pay the rest. And that way we're not giving something to somebody else that you wouldn't give somebody else. Obviously I've got a soft spot for the senior citizens. I go there a few times, at least 3 times a week. I would, I believe that they do good work there, and if they need something like this, I tend to believe that if you guys meet me, that's my offering.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey.
I want to be clear. First of all, I have a soft spot for the senior center as well. So I am not saying this at all because of the place or the seniors or anything like that. I am just doing my fiscal duties as a council person and watching our money. So I want to make sure that that's understood, because this is a hard. When this came across, I'm like, really, the senior center? So I mean, I just want to make sure that that's clear. It's more the precedents that we might set for the future.
Copy that. Councilman Brennan.
the precedent thing, I'm going back to that. What I do think is that the city essentially regularly, I may use the wrong terminology here, but we donate to about 5 groups every year, and this is one of them. And so if a group or organization outside of that the city has chosen to accept as a regular donor, like if the museum here brought the same request, I would be okay saying you have until September 30th to pay us. But I don't think I personally wouldn't approve that for any other organization outside of those that we give to. I don't know if you guys are tracking that. And so
those 6 entities.
Right, and one of them's not in the city limits, so that kind of eliminates one. I think.
Arts Council.
Yeah, Arts Council, I don't think they have a formal not a public building, but, so, I'm gonna stick with, let's give them a little bit to pay, but they need to pay. I'm gonna stick with that, and knowing why I'm doing that, I guess.
Got that.
So,
Second.
I didn't make a motion.
She made a motion, somebody seconded.
Oh, you did make a motion a while ago.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, I did. Gosh.
All right, it's been a motion.
I love it.
It's been seconded. Any further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilman Brennan or Councilman Stowe?
Can we just say again what it was? Because it's been a little while, I'm lost.
Okay.
The amount is.
I made a motion that we allow them to hook up and receive fiber, and that by September 30th of 2023, they will pay the entire amount of $2,217.90.
I'll second that, if you didn't already.
Already did.
All right, it's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion?
That's fair.
Councilman Stowe.
One last thought. I think the senior center might be able to apply for a grant through the state or the feds to recoup this cost. And hence, that's why the delay,
Copy that.
for my opinion.
Okay. I'll call for the question. Councilman Stowe.
Aye.
Councilman McCain.
I don't like going out and giving them more time because everybody's gonna want it, but I do agree that they're an entity that I think we should give an okay to, so I will vote aye.
Councilman Brennan.
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey.
Aye.
All right, thank you, guys. Items removed from the consent agenda, new business, there were none. Discussion with Bruce Patterson, Entry Point team on the LAD 1 fiber optics project. So, come on down, Bruce. How you doing?
Good.
Oh, you wanna hit the TV, Rich, Tiff?
How's the drive down, Bruce?
It was good.
All right,
It
good.
was early, but it was good.
Can you make sure that HDMI cable is good over there for him?
So, council, I sent you the Excel spreadsheet, and then Bruce has finite those a little better for you to look at.
Okay. So I'll start a little bit with the work that's been done, just so you have some idea of where these numbers are coming from. So quite some months ago, we actually had a feasibility level design done for the entire city of Mountain Home. So the green squares, have you seen this at all? Okay, so the green squares are actually access locations where the electronics sit that feed the actual addresses. So the businesses and the homes, all the fiber come back to these locations. They are locked down to city-owned properties, and they're locations where we'd expect to put cabinets or huts, as it were. So if we zoom in, it will actually show us every conduit path. It shows us the drops to the various homes, and it shows us where we have multi-service ports, which are actually hard ports where you plug the drop cable in that goes to the home, because the single fiber goes to the home, and so you have a device there that has like 6 ports, and you just plug it in. So it's a very modular Lego style of building a fiber system, so that you don't have to splice every single connection. You just splice to get a port in the road adjacent to the properties. So
I felt like this was important to show you because when you start thinking about how are you figuring out what this is going to cost us, we have to get to this kind of a granular layer. We actually have to know how many feet of cable, how many feet of conduit, and then we can start to put numbers to what the labor looks like and put it out to bid. So this was all done even prior to the bid that went out for the LID for materials and labor. So this is the whole city. This is a low-level design that is only the LID neighborhood. So you can see it's down here and up here, and you can see that the Parks building where the HUD is currently being set shows a hut here, and up here you've got a booster station that has some fiber in it right now that is probably going to need some improvement to support those homes. So again, if we zoom in, we now know how many feet of conduit and what size of cables in there and so on and so forth to be able to start to do our cost estimates. And so if we zoom into the neighborhood, we actually know what side of the streets we're running conduit down. This has all been driven and verified that it's constructible. So from this, we can actually get a complete bill of materials. And so when we went out to bid, it was based on this design. And then we can also say, okay, so we know we have 1,000 feet that has 4 2-inch conduits in it. And so we can say in the bid form, we need a price per foot to do this 4 conduit system, and where there's 1 conduit, how many feet. And so that's what went out to bid. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the bids came back and you can see it was obvious they were all very high on the labor. Materials came in as expected, and the price on the labor was really high. So what I was asked to do was to run the numbers, what it would look like if you used the staff you had and hired people just for the project as laborers to help them, and what that looked like. So that was the spreadsheet I built, and it was built around this particular design. So that's kind of where I wanted to start. We'll start with that. So if we go into it, this is the actual bill of materials. And we've got linear feet and boxes and how much they are each and totals. So this is off of the bill of materials. So this is all the outside plant material. So it's stuff that's outside of the cabinets and huts. It doesn't include electronics. It's really just the cables and everything goes in. So that's the total on this bill of materials sheet. So you can go in and see what it's going to cost to buy all that. I do have a price in there for a single shelter. To set it, you've got one, use one that you've got that you're setting in there, and we can talk about how that lines up. But we've got a budget in there to cover your improvements for your switch locations that are going to serve those neighborhoods, and that's in these budget line items here. Shows the termination panels and how many of each we've got and what's going on to be able to get us to a number that's an average based on per home that we use then to calculate all of that head-end equipment. This is the core or the cloud system that will actually run the network. Right now, the network's being run by a single server, so you do have kind of a single point of failure, and as you move into the larger business scale, you need a little more redundancy. So this is the head-end system that will run the network, and it runs the automation so that when people sign up, it turns them on. So these are the improvements to make it very resilient and give you a bunch of failover, and also accomplish a lot better alarming and alerts when things go down. It's an improvement over what you currently have. This is the labor. Let's zoom it down just a little bit. So we've got burdened rates, and we've got 4, seasonal or project-oriented laborers. So you're going to have to watch that, because under Percy, as Paula knows, you've got to be careful about how long they're on, or you're going to have to pay them benefits. So the idea here is they're seasonal for the project, that they won't receive benefits. They'll get an hourly wage. You can see that I got them basically at $22 an hour. So all of these wages, if they do get benefits, they're burdened. So some of these include the benefits. That's why the hourly rates are where they're at, is because it includes their benefits. It's actually a little bit higher than currently some of these positions, but I was trying to make sure we had our bases covered, okay? So if you get to it, then you got a total hourly burdened rate. I figured 4 10-hour days to do the project. That's kind of what I was doing, is 40-hour weeks, but I was lumping it, but it doesn't really matter because 40 hours is 40 hours, so it's based on a 40-hour week. And then for the equipment daily, this is buying fuel. and also paying for equipment usage because you want to set some money aside to rebuy the equipment as it ages. So you have to figure out how many hours each piece of equipment is good for and what the value of it is. This is close. It's a little bit down. Like if we wanted to bump it a little bit, you could actually rebuy all your borer machine, your hydro excavator and everything. But you have bought some of those used, and so I did not base it on completely new inventory because my assumption is you would do the same. So this is based on changing out, keeping what you've got going, and being able to buy something that's slightly used. And so it's not really based on going completely new and going and spending $500,000 on a new borer machine. So that gets us to a total daily rate. So that's basically your burn by the time you buy fuel and pay for your equipment and you pay your people. Then what we can do is we can talk to your drill team and ask them how many feet do they think they're going to average a day. Right now, we've got it set on 400 feet. This little slide rule will actually change it. So if they don't think they can get 400 feet a day, this is how you figure out your cost per foot. Because our actual design tells us how many feet. So we're going to tie all this back to how long is it going to take us to do it and what are we paying. Does that make sense, what I've done here? Mm-hmm. So that's what this is. So your drill team's right here. So drill team is 400 feet average, reasonable from your expectation, Kyle and Danny. So we had a conversation about that, and I can just tell you from my experience, this team this size should be able to do 400 feet average. There are going to be days they'll do 800 feet, and there's going to be days they don't do anything. But 400 feet is a good, reasonable average for a team of 6 to 7 people with the equipment you have. So you'll want to staff up and get that. So this is all tied back. So I'm going to put it right back on 400 feet a day so that I can make sure I get it back to where it was. But you can see the effect, right? If they don't get their footage per day, you can see what happens to your cost per foot. So that gives you some concept of what's going on there. Then what we do is we have individual costs. So this is the work that happens through the yard and up to the home. And it includes the electronics that go in the home, and it includes the electronics that it plugs in on the other end. Now we have to break those out and we have to know what that costs because not everybody signs up. So what you need to understand is we're going to pass every home and we're going to leave a fiber for every home, but only half of them might take it. That's a completely different project cost than if everybody takes it, or if 25% take it. And so we've got to get to that number because your LID number, when you published it, you said we're projecting a certain take rate and we're projecting it'll fall in this range. So the whole purpose of this exercise is to make sure we're going to fall in the range we said. So we've got individual cost and we've got common cost. So this common cost is the fiber that goes down the road and leaves those little ports that I told you that you can just plug a drop cable into. So that's everything in common is that. Everything in individual is around figuring out what's it costing us for every home we add. Once we know all of this, you can go to, we can go to the average page. And what this does is it tells us we've got 690 properties we're going to pass. We know if we do the whole project, we're going to spend that much on all the common. If we connect every single home, that's what we're going to pass. If everybody participated and you got 100%, you're going to spend $1.5 million. But what we need to know is if 50% participate, what are we going to spend, and what does that cost per home, because that's how it's going to get billed to us. So that's the purpose of this slider right here. Right now I've got it set on 50.72%. So that potential take rate is 350. The actual individual cost, instead of being this much, is actually this much. The common cost remains the same because what you're doing down the roadway doesn't change because you're going to leave a fiber whether they take it or not so that in the future when they ask for it you can plug them in. So I'm going to take a breath and just say this. That makes sense the way I explained, or do I need to go into it? Okay.
Are you able to zoom in just
Yeah,
slightly?
just a little bit easier.
Down there?
Make it a little bit bigger.
Thank you.
So the potential cost at a 50% take rate, you're going to spend $1.25 million to do this whole project. By the time you divide it out, that amount by this 350, it's going to cost $3,573
Per house.
per house. The range we published was $3,300 to $4,000. So right now, that's the sign up you have is 50%. Experience would tell us that if you start, you're going to get another 10%. So I think you're going to finish at 60%. If you were to ask me based on my experience, you're going to finish at 60%.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Stokes. Bruce, can you just go up to 60 and show us the number?
Maybe.
It's creepy. It's creepy.
60.14, so then it drops to $3,100.
What if you go to 70? That's our last one.
No worries.
It's like 28.
All right.
I thought 65 was 2,800. 65. 2880, wasn't it? Or
Yes.
come on.
It's like getting gas and like ending at the even mark. Never can happen.
It didn't change, did it?
Here's not your formula.
Yeah, your formula's messed up.
I messed it up.
Oh.
Sorry.
Is it? Go
It was at 28.
Go back.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sometimes it's a neat idea, but maybe if I look at my screen, it'll work better. Come on. You can see it wanting to move, can't you?
It's okay. I understand the idea.
We did check it. We did check it at 70%. It was like 68.5%. We did check earlier in the day, and it was $2,800. Yeah. My apologies that it doesn't seem to want to. But this, I did share this. It's exactly the spreadsheet that got sent out. So now you know and understand how these things work. So you can actually go in and go, okay, well, what happens if we only get 200 feet a day? And what happens if we only get a 50% take rate? And it starts to show you where you fall outside of what you predicted. And I think the thing that I'm trying to show you is that I feel reasonably comfortable that if your team can hit those marks, which I believe they can, then I think you're going to come in somewhere in that budget. Now, it might be a little higher, it might be a little lower, and it's going to depend on the take rate, and it depends, if things go really well. I tried to build enough in there because you're putting basically just under $6,000 a week in towards equipment and fuel, and we know that you're not going to spend $6,000 on fuel, so you're actually going to have money to put in the bank to try and rebuy this equipment as it starts to wear out. And if you really felt like you had to use that towards the project to get it to even, you've actually got a little wiggle room. It just means you won't have as much in the bank when you're done.
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan?
what's the rate you're using on diesel fuel?
Ain't enough, whatever it is.
That much I can tell you. I don't think it's enough. I mean, the part of it is like, it just sits there and runs. So, I mean, how often are you filling the bore machine in when you're...
I do like every other drill. That depends. And it's like, right now it's been $100 a tank or something like that. So like every, I don't know, if we're doing 800 feet a day, so $100 every 800 feet, somewhere around there. So if I do 800 feet, that's around $100.
So that's 2 days, $100 every 2 days on the bore.
Well, and that's relative because we don't pay tax. It looks like we pay $100 on the little tabby, but really it's take all the taxes out. We're paying 50,
Whoever knows, yeah.
35, 40, no, probably 50.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey?
can you remind me how much the first LID was? What's 1.475? The total amount that we can go out for on our first LID.
Oh, it was based on homes. It wasn't a dollar amount.
Oh, okay, all right. So we're not stuck on a dollar amount. Because I was
No.
watching the number go up to 1.3 and I'm like,
No.
okay.
Yeah, it was, so basically, if it's 690 homes, and you got 100% take rate, and we said the top was 4,000, you could figure out what it is by taking 690 multiplied by 4,000. That would be the top of what you...
Okay.
Another thing to remember is if you get down the process and you realize we're bent out of shape here, we're going to be more than 20% above. I would recommend 10%, but the loss, I mean, your attorney's here, I think it's 20%. You start to recognize you're going to be more than 20% or more above what you told them, meaning like you're going to all of a sudden hit $4,400 or so. You're really supposed to stop the project, send out a public notice, and have a whole nother public meeting and let everybody know that you're out of whack on your budget. And then it's really a public process to figure out what you're going to do to fix it. So ideally, nobody, including me, wants to see that happen. So I'd rather see some wiggle room, which is why we give them the range. The feeling is, look, we're trying to shoot for around the middle of the range. You should finish somewhere up or down. You shouldn't finish it over. It could be that you'll come back at $3,800 and people will say, well, that's $200 more than we thought it was going to be, but you're still within the range that you published.
Yeah.
Councilman Brennan?
If people get scared, whatever, that have opted in already because of the economy and how much things are costing now, and maybe they don't have money for it, do you know what the take rate would have to go down to be out of that range that we quoted the people?
I don't know, and
I know it's not working right now, but
I could close it and reopen it maybe.
There you go.
I mean, you're getting there right at 45% or so.
what was the top end that we quoted?
$4,000.
$4,000. Oh, yeah, 45%. Okay.
So, you get much below 45%, I'd start worrying about it.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Councilman Stokes?
I just have a question for Paula. What defines a seasonal labor? Can they work 5 months, 6 months,
8 months?
Yeah.
8 months?
Percy defines them as 8 months.
Okay.
Full-time work for 8 months?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Stokes?
Kyle, are you prepared to supervise a team?
Yeah, we've already got it broken up and kind of who's doing what. Like I'll stay on the trunk line with another guy. Daniel will be doing drills to the house with a small drill, and then Eddie, our guy, he'll kind of be running a potholing crew. And that, just doing that alone is gonna catapult our feet per day, because right now we're potholing, we're restoring, we're doing everything. So we get some more guys in to have a crew pothole ahead of us and a crew to restore behind us. Then all me and Danny have to do is sit on the drills, really. And like we have to train them to do everything, but for the majority of the party, that's what, like, we'll be on the drills, we won't be potholing and restoring. So we'll be getting a lot more feet in per day than we would have been recently. We still got to go through the time of training them all, but I think once we get them up to speed, we'll be up to speed.
Mayor,
Councilman McGarvey?
can I ask you, what is your guys' average right now, drilling?
We've been kind
Approximately.
of off when we were drilling like to the wells and stuff, because we've been doing a lot more projects. We've
Yeah.
been getting like around 350 to 400 feet a day. That's why I was saying I feel comfortable with the 400 feet, because there's days where we've done more than 400 feet with the process of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So adding people, it's only going to get faster.
Yeah.
If in good dirt, and all this is 100% on the ground. Like I could drill 800 feet a day in good dirt, or I can drill 30 feet a day in bad dirt. So this really isn't going to depend on how hard we work. It's going to be dependent on how hard the ground is. So, and I think up around Legacy, we've done some drilling up there. That's all good. It's Silverstone is the issue, and we've talked to Bruce about, because he's ran into that issue with his LEDs, and he's kind of talked to us on how we can get around that. Get some trenching in.
I just had one more question. Can you clarify when you said you're going to drop the line to each house, whether they opt in or not? Is that happening, or was that a hypothetical?
There's a fiber left for every property, and in fact, the way that we design it, there's actually a 30% overage. So there's actually 30% in spares. The thing that I would try and do my best to make clear is the fiber all runs through the neighborhood in a cable, and you can visualize that. And then it all comes up in a cabinet or a hut, and it all lands on a rack, and it's all a spot where you can plug into it. Those are all scattered throughout the neighborhood. So every 4 homes, we leave 6 ports, and they're basically just a dust cap on them, and you pull the dust cap on, you plug the drop cable in. So whether or not a home hooks up or not, there's a fiber left in the road for that address.
So that infrastructure is being added with this right now. Okay.
So if somebody says, oh, I didn't sign up, but I want to sign up, or I want to connect, and they want to pay their connect fee, just like you've published, they would basically write the check, and that means you don't have to go all the way from the hut to in front of that house. There's one there. All you're going to do is connect to the house. Now, a connect fee is made up of two components: capacity replacement and the actual cost of the extension. So part of your connect fee is paying for that fiber they're now going to consume, and the other part is to pay for going to the home.
Right, okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Stokes?
Kyle, how's your boring machine and drill going right now? Like, what's the condition of it? And what do you think it'll last?
Talking to people like ours should last. Like, I've only gone through one rack of rods, and there's, like, talking to Tyler, they're on their 5th rack of rods, and I've gone through one in 4 years. So I'm not saying I'm going to get another 10 years out of it, but like everyone said, even Vermeer has been pretty impressed with like how little maintenance. Like, we've broke some bits and bent some rods, which has just happened with it, but they, like, all I've heard from everyone that I work around is they're surprised with how well it's been taken care of. After every drill, we wash it, clean it, because that drill is our job, so I try to take care of it as well as possible.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
And thanks for taking care of the equipment.
Yeah, pays my salary.
Council, any other questions for Bruce while we have him here?
Nope.
Do I have your permission to talk candidly for just a minute?
Absolutely. I think the council approves. Candid conversation.
A lot of the cities and counties scattered across the country recognize the ARPA money as an opportunity to make an investment in a utility that they'll build out. I've heard expressed from you folks in particular that your concern is that it would benefit only one neighborhood. So I wanted to share with you a tactic that's being used in other locations. They will take the ARPA money and do an LID like this, and they use the ARPA money to fund the construction, which meets all the requirements of ARPA, which is you have to do a capital project. It has to be a capital project in sewer, water, or fiber, or broadband. Once that's done, you've met the terms. You close the LID and you get the bond money and you repay yourself back. So basically that ARPA money you now have back. And then you take it and you use it again and you do the next neighborhood and then you do the next neighborhood. So that ARPA money is helping everybody in the city get through the city. So it's the way it's being leveraged in other places we're working. You just have to walk through the legal process and the audit process and make sure that you dot the I's and cross the T's, but other cities are doing it that way.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Stokes?
Bruce, when you're doing this and rolling it over, can you charge yourself interest to kind of build up the pot so that at the end that 1.2 is 1.7 and the next council is quite pleased?
Correct. And so that's another thing most of the cities are doing, because if your ARPA money is sitting in a savings account, it's earning a certain percentage rate. Basically, the LID would pay the interest rate that you want to charge them. And that's a two-edged sword. Most of the cities will look at it and they'll say, we want to make a little bit more than we make in savings so that it actually makes a little more money, but we also don't want to make a bunch, because what it is you're using that ARPA money as an investment in your community. If it's just sitting in a bank, that money is being used someplace else. It's not benefiting your community. Yes, you're getting interest, but this way you're getting twofold. You're investing in your community, you're building in the utility, and you're making interest on the money. And it's something you can just roll and roll and roll.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Stokes?
I got one more question for Bruce. We take this money, we build out this LID, it closes, right? Someone within that LID comes back later and says, I want topped in and here's $3,200. Does that $3,200 go back to everyone within that LID?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. But the one thing I would encourage you to focus on is if you look at your monthly M&O rates, you will recognize you are not creating a reserve. So the LID is great for getting you stood up. But I will tell you, in Ammon and other places where we're doing this, that connect fee goes into reserve, so it does benefit every single member in the utility that's joined up, because it allows you to keep your rates low and it gets that reserve there so that when you do need to replace equipment or you've got something, you've got some money in the bank, because that's where you're getting it. An LID does not allow you to collect more than it costs you to build the project. So it's really good at getting the infrastructure out there. It's terrible at creating a reserve.
So Bruce, let's say we don't use the ARPA funds and we just go out for a construction loan. What happens then?
So
the big thing that motivated Ammon, we got really good favorable interest rates on construction loan, and this goes back a number of years. The interest rate was extremely favorable at the time we did it. It was actually like 1.78% on the interest on the construction loan, was a great price. Where they killed us was on the transactional fees. Every time you make a draw, they want to do an inspection, they want to see your materials, they want to see how many feet you've done, and those actually added up to more than the interest over the term of the loan. So the transactional fees was where the bank was killing us. The second thing was the amount of overhead that started to would have happened on the staff, specifically the city treasurer at the time, was pretty tremendous because she had to ask for the draw, she's trying to make payroll, timing of things, getting the money in, tracking it all was a lot more work. So Ammon did it internally, primarily for the transactional fees and because it allowed the audit trail to be very clear because it was all internal, and the LID paid more interest than the money was earning where it was put in a savings account. So I thought the mayor at the time did an excellent job because she went to the public and said, we've got money in the bank, it's your money, and we're going to invest it in this community, and we're going to earn some interest on it just like we would, but instead of it just earning interest, we're actually going to spend it here in developing our community.
Thanks.
So I felt like I wanted to throw that out there because we are seeing this in several locations. Even in Idaho, there's a city that's doing it this way, that will use their ARPA dollars and then roll it.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Garvey?
Okay, here's my candid time. If you recall, and this, I'm only speaking for myself, not the whole council, although we all voted the same way. The reason why we did not move that ARPA money, or did not want that ARPA money spent that way, is because we have to have a new well. We've had things happen since then where obviously we've got grant money, things are happening, but now we're back to square one, possibly needing another well, because we have a new well that has a sand issue. So I appreciate your take on, what we can and can't do with that money, but that's part of my reasoning why I was pushing for the ARPA. And water's pretty important, so.
Sure. And I don't want to, I did not run for office, I have no appetite for it. So, and I'm also not an attorney, and I'm also not an accountant. My objective here was just to simply point out that it's probably a very rare opportunity to have money to stand something up.
Yeah,
and it's very, very challenging otherwise, as you know, because the situation would be completely different if you were asking water to backstop this or general fund to backstop this, which effectively is what Ammon did, is they stood it up and borrowed money from the reserves out of those other funds, which is legally permissible. But your situation is a little bit different, and I can't speak to your priorities. I just felt like you would want to know that that's an option, and it seems like a very viable option. It just depends on your appetite and what your priorities are.
Yeah, and we kind of had that conversation today that, let's say LID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the whole city's hooked up. Then you have 1 point whatever, 5, 7, 8 million goes back to the general fund. Do whatever you want because the city's already hooked up. You can do whatever the hell you want with that money. So that was just another that he brought up this afternoon that I thought that was a pretty intelligent way to use money, that it's not subsidizing the utility, it's giving everyone the opportunity. So
anyway, just like I said, working with the other cities, I felt like you'd want to know that that's being done, and it's just an option, tool in the tool chest if you want.
All right.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Garvey?
One more. Will you show us what that will look like? Like a spreadsheet? I mean, just show us moving the money over, what it will look like. I don't know. I'll talk to you later about
Yeah, like put it in the...
Put something in writing and show us what that will actually look like so that we have more, because this is new to us.
Right. Nope.
If that's an option, we can
and then
do that.
we'll show you the fees if we do a construction loan versus...
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that would be very helpful, I think.
Copy that. Any other questions for the godfather of fiber? Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Bruce, thank you for taking your time coming down.
Yeah, no problem.
We knew you could quantify that Excel spreadsheet way better than us, and Bruce's team back there as well.
The weather's really bad. It's blizzard.
Is it?
Don't tell my wife.
Oh, drive safe.
We'll figure it out. We'll be fine.
That's a long drive.
You saved my house.
Well, you've got a lot of investment and you've got a pretty dedicated team, so, I mean, I think you've got everything you need to take the next step. But the next step really is you've got to generate some revenue because it's not sustainable without some revenue.
Yeah.
So honestly, as I try and advise you on that, that's what I'm really pushing for, is if you get that first 1,000 customers, think about that. That's $1,700 a month that starts to roll in and it starts to look a lot better. But the longer you're in this really low, you know, subscriber base, it's hard.
17,500 a month.
Yeah.
I was gonna say 1,700, that's not gonna.
I know for Anna, once we crossed the 1,500, everything started to really look a lot better and feel a lot better, because it feels like you're in subsidy mode until you cross a certain threshold. And for you guys, it's probably, you know, that first 500 to 1,000. If you could get that under your belt, you'd feel like you've got it.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Drive
Hey, make sure you drive safe.
Rubber side down, rubber side down.
Rundown action non-action item, discussion decision, request for qualification RFQ to operate the Optimus Park motor track and Optimus Park BMX track.
It's T-belt here.
Right. I don't remember this one. Batter up. I've been under the weather.
Mayor, council,
Sorry. Oh, never mind.
Justin Rose, who's the operator of our motocross track, he has moved, or will be moving by the end of the year. So he no longer wants to operate the motocross track, and we haven't had an operator on the BMX track for quite some time. However, I used to kind of vet or do this a lot when I was over at Recreation, and I feel that probably the time has come that we put out requests for qualifications for people to operate the tracks rather than just anybody walking in and wanting to operate them. And so I was kind of asking you guys, between Miguel Darcy and I, and then Justin said he would help on his knowledge of operating the motocross track currently. And then I was gonna kind of seek input from some of the BMX just to see what's out there and then start the process for operations in 2023, if you guys are okay with that.
Sounds good, do it.
Yeah.
Perfect. I just didn't want to do it and you guys wonder what the heck we were doing, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Stokes.
Big shout out to Justin, though. He did a good job. He got his own equipment. I don't know if he's going to take that with him.
Oh, he is.
Oh, he was doing such a good job with the motocross track. So
Yeah.
thanks, Justin.
Yeah, they moved out of town. His work moved him somewhere else, so.
Cool.
Councilman Brennan.
On that note there, I heard today that the Oval Cross Mountain Home Speedway people bought their own road grader.
Ooh, nice.
I'm excited to see these guys investing in their own project.
Exactly.
Not relying so much on city resources.
Thanks, Tiff. Or T-belt.
Or
Tiff. All right, action item number 4, deliberation decision on Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, findings of facts to approve the proposed preliminary plat with conditions for Fall Creek subdivision. Staff provided the report via email October 13, 2022. Comments, questions, concerns on this one, council?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Stokes?
Could we have Mr. Chair give us a brief synopsis, and maybe if the applicant is here and they want to speak, have them
You
go
said
up to...
brief all the time. He doesn't know brief.
I try. Brief and synopsis. It's thorough.
All right, Mr. Chair, go ahead.
Mayor, City Council, what you have before you today is a preliminary plat. This is directly south of the existing Silverstone subdivision. We have 40 acres. A R4 preliminary plat is being requested. This isn't a PUD. It's a standard plat. It will consist of 176 detached single-family homes. There will be approximately 8 acres of open space. And there is also going to be a dedication to the City Mountain Home Fire Department, a small half-acre portion of land for future use in that area. Before I hand it over to the applicant, I will just bring up that this property, there has been interest in developing it. Rich Arikidi, please correct me if I'm wrong, probably for like the last year and a half. The applicant today is Hayden Homes. We know that there was strong interest from Hubble at one time. They spoke to us at length. Immediately working with our public works director, what came to my mind during those initial conversations is we don't have an odor problem at the ponds now. So why on earth would we play with fire? And I was very nervous about it. I had pretty lengthy conversations with Rich, with Cheryl. I went out there myself. I can't remember the last time we went out there. I don't think it was during the summer, but I know it wasn't winter, and I had to walk up myself and smell it for myself. I feel that the proposal coming to you today, I just want you to know that it is one that has developed over time, that we took into consideration odor being the primary thing, but also we know our ponds ran very well. But if they were to fail, if the asteroid was to hit and they were to fail, what would that look like? What sort of area would we want to have to respond in to potentially do a cleanup? What areas do we not want to have that residential use there? And the buffer provided, a big shout out to the applicant for working with city staff. When we said that this is our line, that we will not go any farther, they said that's it. So I've been very impressed working with them. From the economic development standpoint, having another significant builder such as Hayden Homes come into our market is very exciting. Right now Hubble and CBH are very great partners. It's really nice to add a third. From the planning perspective, I can tell you that with the preliminary plat that they meet all of our standards, they meet all of the design standards that are there. Those have been evaluated. So with that, I will turn the time over to Mr. Tim Makwa, who is representing the applicant, and let him give a short presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Tim Makwa with Hayden Homes. I'm not going to go through all this in detail because I understand it's in your packet, so in the interest of being sensitive to your time, just a couple of key things I wanted to point out. It is already annexed and zoned R4. Our layout and our lot configuration complies with the R4 zone from density and lot sizing standpoint. I think the biggest issue, Brock mentioned it, was the sewer lagoons and the potential for odor. I just wanted to point out a couple of things that we're proposing, I guess, as mitigation. Proposing or being required to do, either, they're the same thing here, because we're completely fine with it. Our understanding, and I have been out there when it was 98 degrees, 100 degrees, and I haven't noticed any smell. We had a citizen at P&Z spoke up that he's lived there his whole life and he's never had an issue with it. Could be that he's used to it, but at the same time, that's from somebody that's there and knows it. Our understanding is that maybe twice a year, when the ponds get rolled over or turned over, is when you could get some odor. We're going to require disclosures to be signed by any homeowners or purchasers. I think that might be part of your code as well. That they acknowledge that there are potential times when, they could get some odor from it. All of our homes are designed and built to a high, I believe it's called a HERS level, where the penetrations, extra ceilings on the windows, penetrations in the crawl or attic space, they're fairly airtight homes. We are using the 315-foot buffer area on the south end of the subdivision. So that's this area down, there we go. That's this area down here. So this is the south property line, our south property line, the north property line of the city's property. There's an existing chain link fence along there. I believe it's got a 3-foot or 2-foot razor wire along the top. So the entire area will be secure. This is the property Brock mentioned that we're proposing to donate for fire department use by the city. And so there'll be no homes built. In addition to the 315, that's just to the south end of these lots. There's a setback, in the R4 zone to the actual home itself. So the other mitigation that we're proposing is this area along here is proposed to be a 12-foot high earth berm with landscaping on top. And I don't know if the landscape plan is in your packet, but it's fairly dense with a lot of evergreens to help mitigate some of that potential for odor. It's also in our best interest to screen it out of sight, out of mind, sooner the better. Unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to build this entire berm in phase one. This is proposed to be our phase one up here on the north side as we're extending from the roads in Silverstone. We're not going to be generating enough earth or dirt from our grading operations to build the entire berm. But our plan is, as we strip the site and continue to work our way to the south, we'll raise that to the full 12-foot height. And I think, based on the preliminary earthwork that our engineers put together, I think in the second, possibly into the third phase, we'll have enough material to construct that berm completely. And we are going to be using the city standards for the, trying to minimize water usage out here with our landscaping, including in the homes or in the lots themselves, with the 50% of irrigatable area. Other than that, I mean, those are the main things. We are excited about potentially being another partner in the community. I know housing is in demand. Micron's expansion, the air base. I mean, there's a lot of needs for housing, and we'd like to be able to be one of those helping provide and make up some of that shortage. So, with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan?
Tiffany, do you have the little pointer I could use for a minute? Sorry. Just a couple questions about this map, this wire up here on the map. Okay. Let's see here. Is this a road right here on the bottom next to the city's chain link fence?
Yeah. From our communication with staff, there wasn't a need for a collector road there. Our proposal in the subdivision is to dedicate the 60-foot right-of-way for a future collector road through there, but not to build the road itself, so that the right-of-way would be dedicated to the city.
So on that map, that's just a right-of-way. You have your development has no intentions of that being a road. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
And right where the green's at, is that Silverstone? Not Silverstone. South Fifth West. All the way up here.
No. So it's up at the top left corner, so it'll be the northwest corner.
Oh, okay.
Where
it turns to Vera.
Right there. Yeah, where it turns to Vera. Correct. So our plan, we would have fencing along the light blue and the pink.
Yeah.
There'd be fencing all along there between the housing and the berm and the south end. And then, so we would have a terminus at that light blue road, and then there'd be a gravel driveway that the city could build for their 0.45 acre fire department access.
I'm sorry. I might have lost you on that. I understand South Fifth West basically ends right here and turns into Vera. But this is not going to be a road either right here.
Correct.
Okay. Question for our two chiefs. Have they been involved in this process for the development meetings?
Chief Moore, the fire marshal, Brian Reed.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to step out on a limb here, and I want to say first, I appreciate the dedication of city property for future growth. This is like tucked way down as far away as we could possibly get it, and surrounded by, I think of like security and stuff like that. Would you be willing to put it on these 3 lots right here, so we have easy and quick access to South Fifth West for overall city response? I don't like it being tucked way down there where nobody gets to keep an eye on it, essentially, because it's not going to be a manned station, I would imagine, right, Chief?
That is correct.
So it'd be like a garage for a fire truck, and I know I'm probably taking away 3 of your lots for this project if you were to grant that, but that makes sense for a city fire substation, police substation there, not all the way down at the bottom down here.
Well, my understanding was it was never intended to be a substation, or it's basically a staging gravel lot for extra equipment was what I got out of it when we had our initial pre-app meeting with fire there. So, from that standpoint, I mean, we can't take those 3 lots and build them down here in this 315 foot. So I would not be in favor of doing that from the standpoint of a loss of 3 lots, particularly in this really difficult time we're in right now. And it looks like 2023 is going to be a difficult time. So I'm not in favor of doing that for 3 lots. I mean, I think given the 0.45 acres is a pretty good gesture in itself. I also don't think you would want to have a staging yard or a parking area at the entry to your subdivision either, so I'm not in favor of it from those couple of standpoints.
Well, I don't understand what the city's intent is, if our chiefs or Brock could speak up, as a staging lot.
I'd be happy to speak up. So the thing is we know that the southwest portion of town is a high growth area. Brian Reed was motivated, and the thing is like we say right now that it could be fire department use, but we recognize that as our city grows out, that maybe it's a fire department, maybe that's storage for public works for something for our sewer ponds. We just know that there's value in having some sort of land right there. So I can tell you as far as details, whether this would be a traditional station where we would respond to, I don't think that was ever really the case. But the idea was we're having exponential growth in this area, in this part of town. Brian Reed thought, hey, would the developer be willing to give us anything? And the developer was like, well, we have this buffer area that we can't really use as much anyway. Not to say that it doesn't have value for us, but there could be something there for you. So I can tell you that I don't think we've had a subdivision, and I'll probably give this to Rich, in our history where we've tried to do this type of planning so far ahead. But what I would say is you have a versatile piece of property that maybe it's fire department use, but it could be public works, it could be police.
Brock, if it's any of those things, not any, if it's emergency services, they're gonna have to run through the neighborhood with houses on both sides of them to get out to a main connector road. So, if we don't have a plan for it yet, I know we can't really be demanding here. I'm aware of that, but it sure be nice if we could strike a deal. I also feel like that berm would need the berm on the southern edge would need to be constructed before phase 2 goes, because as I read this map, phase 2 takes you all the way down to the bottom, the southern end of that property.
I don't have an issue with that. I mean, we could strip phase 3 ahead of time too and have material. I'm just trying not to strip the whole site at one time. I will say also, as Brock was saying, the intent is this would be of some service in the future. That's the same thing with this 60-foot collector roadway. So at some point, as the property to the east or the west develops, you could end up having this be a collector roadway, and you're right here on the corner of that collector roadway, if access is a concern.
But what we do know is it will never go any further south.
Correct.
So that is the furthest south our city will get in that general area.
Mayor.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Quick question. So I'm just trying to wrap my mind around. So that potential collector road, is there an access point from the sewer lagoons to that area? Just so, if you needed it for sewer stuff or whatever.
Can I have my pointer?
I know there's several gates.
I can get up there.
Somebody took your red state.
I can get up there. So right here's Headworks.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. So right here's the Headworks. So that we do have a road that goes right here that hooks onto Daniels.
Okay, yes, all right, okay, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Okay.
My guess is probably if right here, let's see, so right here is more farmland.
Mhm.
So we could actually the city could end up going farmland out this way to keep going south.
Around the loop,
to answer
around
your
the
question,
lagoons.
it can't go south any farther right here because of the lagoons.
Right.
But it could go south this way.
On the other side of South 10th East.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on this side.
Yeah.
So there's a big farm that kind of goes, and it has to jog because our lagoons kind of go this way and out this way a little bit, but it still can go.
Off of
But
Daniels Road.
If you're security wise, if you want to watch it, we have people right here all the time, every day. that are sit at headworks and that there are buildings to be able to watch things that, I mean, obviously, we don't know what's gonna happen. I know that this property right here, somebody's looking at buying this. They were asking the same question about the buffer zone, and it is a state statute that you have to have. I don't think it's we asked 315, I don't think it has to be 350.
It's 200.
It's 200 feet.
200.
So it's 200 feet from any lagoon, that's by statute, So, that's what,
To the house.
to the,
Mm-hmm.
to
So
a
from the
residence.
pond actually to
Yeah.
the residence, so we're more like 400.
You're more like
probably.
400
Yeah.
to this one here, so, yeah. Because we've had questions, I've had a lot of, realtors asking about the question next to it, right there, so. So the 315, then that's awesome, and then plus with a berm, so.
Also, I just wanted to point out, we're proposing to carry that 12-foot berm here too. So we want to screen that, because I picture this as being chain link, for security, is when we talked about it originally. So our intent would be to screen that from these homeowners as well, our future homeowners as well.
I think Mark had a question.
Sorry, Chief, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may jump in on this thing in terms of the conversation with the fire station that you may have had with Brian. I don't mean to come across as ingrate, but realistically looking at where it's currently sitting, maybe in time with growth it can be something more than it is. But currently, the way that it's set up right now, I agree with the forethought that the further away that we are from there, because we'd be pushing the way we respond to stations, we'd be pushing to the furthest most point and then reaching back from there. In time, maybe we have firefighters in that area and it would work out great, but currently, I think it's important for the city, no matter what we do, that we're forward thinking and we don't settle for a place, we go where it is geographically the best location,
Amen.
the best response.
Thanks, Chief. All right, council, Tim, or not, yeah, Tim, sorry. Council, you got any more questions for Tim?
I mean, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it sounds like, I mean, if we had never proposed to donate this .45, we wouldn't be having this conversation on where it is. So, I mean, if that's the issue, I mean, we can't build within this, so it's not like it's costing us anything to donate that property. It was something that we, was mentioned and we proposed, but now it sounds like that's becoming a problem, that it's not in the ideal area, in a buildable area. So I guess I'm a little confused here. Should we not donate that to the city? And then this issue, I mean, because everything else, we're matching the requirements of the code for an R4 subdivision.
That's right.
Councilman McCain. Sorry.
I'm going to make a motion to approve planning and zoning's recommendation to finding the facts and approve preliminary plat with conditions for the Fall Creek subdivision.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Stokes.
Yes, beggars can't be choosers, and thank you for that land. I think it will come in handy
At some point.
in the future.
Thanks, Councilman. Councilman Brennan?
The berm going around on the south end there, is it gonna be broken for that road right there? So just kind of reconnect there? Okay. And also, you guys Brock, you didn't mention the comments made at P&Z about like a neighborhood park or anything like that. Is that of any importance?
Yes, it is. So we did have a comment from a neighbor who lives in that area who was like, well, what about a park? What's there? What will happen with this development is they're actually going to add on to that green area. We have a gazebo on the south side. And the really cool thing about impact fees, that makes me grin ear to ear, is for each of these homes that are built, we're going to collect a parks impact fee. Which, when all that is built out, will be a couple $100,000, which can then be invested to the existing green space we have to add amenities that people are searching for there.
Pickleball?
Whatever this body so chooses, but that's one of the reasons why we have the impact fees there. I know we received comments of when are we going to get our regional park? Where's the South Side Legacy? Where's that? after discussing, with some of our team, we didn't think this was the ideal place for that. That there will be that need there, but we know that water's an issue, so we know that having a ideal place presented to this body for that type of facility is probably going to be a top priority. But for the knowledge, they will expand on the existing green space, which is, it's not showing it on the screen.
It's a big spot.
Right up there.
Big spot up there.
But it's very nice. It is nothing like the that other part to the north, which is kind of rocky and not that favorable. It's a prime green space, which as we collect impact fees, I think we're going to be able to add some equipment there and some amenities for the surrounding places.
So if I understand correctly, they're setting that corner aside for future development?
Yeah, so there is an existing corner there. They're going to add on more green space, no equipment.
Silverstone has got it
Yeah.
up here. So we're matching this common area lot with Silverstone, so it makes it a longer, open area,
So
landscape area.
So they will add more, and that is a public space. So unlike...
That's not a runoff, is it? Or one of those water collection points? That's basically good for nothing?
So it does collect it, but it's very different than the others. In that it's very wide, it's very green, it's very usable. As far as how deep it is.
Similar to Rosewood. It's less depth of Rosewood.
Okay.
Plus, there's substantial land that isn't within the runoff, which is flat, where we could place equipment which would never be compromised by rainwater.
Okay, council, I've got a motion and second. Any further discussion?
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan?
I'd like to ask Councilman McCain, based on our comments and the developer's willingness, can we mandate the berm be put in before phase 2 starts?
I thought it was gonna be at the end with phase 2.
Like within phase, while it's being built?
Yeah. Because he said he could do phase 2 and phase 3 stripping at the same time.
That's fine.
Okay, yeah, I'll mandate that. I'll go ahead and do that for the stripping of phase 2 and 3 at the same time to finish the berm.
Any further discussion?
Did I get the second on that?
Second.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right, I'll call for the question. Councilman McCain?
Aye.
Councilman Stokes?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Nay.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
All right, action. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
Rundown action number 5, deliberation decision on waiving building permit fees requested by Elmore County. Councilman McCain, you had a comment maybe on that?
Well, if somebody has a question, they need to ask it because I'm ready to make a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Stokes?
is there any representatives from the county here?
Yes, sir.
Mayor?
Councilman, is it the only one? Question?
Keep them up.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Councilman Brennan.
Oh, I didn't realize I cut you off. You can
No.
keep going.
Councilman Brennan?
Go ahead.
Fire Chief, I got some questions that maybe you could help me answer. And I'm going to read from this letter that the county submitted. Is that okay? I'm starting in the middle of paragraph 2 where it says, and this unmanned facility will not need fiber connection, police calls, fire calls, or street improvements. Would you agree that a 3,000 plus facility building would never have a need for fire calls?
Makes 0 sense.
I'm not sure. I wanted to ask. I'm not the fire guy. But so I'm not trying to be a jerk to anybody, but I think this letter is a little extra. And I can agree that they don't need fiber, they don't need water or electricity, and I'll stretch out on the limb and say they may not even need police. And granted, if something happens to it, the county's got to conflict it to the city for services probably because it's a county building and they probably don't want deputies investigating their own crime stuff. and I would agree that they don't need street improvements, but to say that a 3,000 plus foot storage shed doesn't need fire protection, I don't agree with that. And when it comes to waiving the fees that they've requested, I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a problem with it, because we need to be good partners in the work that we do with the county. I don't know where I'm going with this. Whether we waive all the fees or keep the fire fee because it needs fire protection. I'll give up my time for a minute to anybody else.
I'm in your motion then. If you're done.
If I'm done. Is Brad done?
Councilman McCain.
I'll make a motion to waive all the fees for the building permit except the fiber connection fee here, that we did not waive it for anybody else. I don't see the point in waiving it for them when the city's gonna have to pay it. So I don't know what it is. It says $14.95 here. I've heard $2,200 today. I've heard $3,000 today. I've heard $1,200. I don't know what it is, so whatever it happens to be.
Mayor,
Councilman Garvey.
can we get clarification? The commercial fiber fee is in there because any new construction, residential or, has to hook into fiber.
It doesn't have to, but you.
But you have to pay, the infrastructure, okay?
Well, it was, excuse me, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, that was my, I just need clarification.
Yeah, Mayor, it states in here that they don't need fiber, either, come to think of it. To where, so I'd like to amend my motion to waive all $1,644.64.
Second.
It's been motioned and second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Stokes.
I ran with Councilman Brennan. I don't see how this storage shed wouldn't need police, wouldn't need fire, or wouldn't need street improvements. So I'm against waiving all the fees, unless there was a representative here that we could ask simple questions to.
Mayor.
It's gonna need all of that.
Copy that.
All right.
Councilman Levy?
I'm sorry, I did not mean, I'm sorry. I just want to, so, in reading this letter, which I got this letter several weeks ago, it says that there was a representative that would have been happy to attend one of our city council meetings on the 7th or the 14th. So, I think it's important to understand there was somebody that was wanting to come to our meeting, and for whatever reason, we did not accommodate that. I don't know if they couldn't fit in our agenda, I don't know. But there was somebody that wanted to come talk to us about these fees. And I think we need to work with the county, as they will hopefully work with us if we ever need to.
Can I just clarify? In this email from Mitra, I have it says later in November and potentially November 28th.
I'm happy to attend a city council meeting on November 7th or 14th, 2022 to make this request in person if needed.
I'm just saying, like,
yeah,
it was later clarified.
Yeah.
We did, I'm just saying, we did
Oh,
communicate.
okay.
Our staff did not deliberately try to put them
Yeah,
off. Like, we openly communicated.
Okay, good, good.
Go ahead, Paula.
It's actually a question for Brock. How would that work if they waive that? So then, do we do a transfer to make up for those fees from those departments? Is there a process in the impact fee to justify the waiving? How does that work? Sorry to put you on the spot.
So, within the ordinance, there are those opportunities.
So would it be a letter that comes back to the council for that?
Would it be well, there would be more conversation. I don't know if it necessarily would be a letter as much as a process of what we would be able to look at. But we do know that the budget has to break even somewhere. So even though it is a subsidy of another government agency, which I do see the county's thoughts on that, However, if we were to just waive it straight across the board, is there a potential argument that it's putting more stress on your city taxpayer? Because we're using then our general fund to make up for the difference. And then that's general fund paid by the city taxpayer that isn't necessarily going toward a city service. So, I don't know, maybe there's an argument this is a county service that the city receives as well.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Garvey?
Eagle,
Yes.
if you recall our conversation, we had an in-depth conversation that there is a process that we as a city, and stop me where I need to be stopped, we as a city don't have to end up paying these impact fees because of the type of entity that we are waiving these fees for. So that's why I'm totally okay with it, because I've already talked to Paul about this. These are not fees, so if we waived impact fees for a residential, then yes, we would have to come up with those fees. However, this sort of a project, the city doesn't have to come up with the $16,000. Yes?
That's correct.
Okay.
There is a process in our code where if you can demonstrate that the calculations as applies to a certain property would not burden the level of service that is currently existing, then that would be a basis to adjust the fee for that particular, but that's through the appellate process that they can undergo. The only thing caveat I would say now is we just heard from the fire chief that says, at least has to fire. And I don't know about police. But I was looking at it for water, sewer, streets, what impact would it have? And so that's, you can informally do the process that Brock and I know, which is what we talked about. If you can alleviate any concerns you have, for example, you've now just heard from the fire chief, you could ask police as to what that can entail. You could ask streets, and then you could ask, but obviously sewer, water, those are enterprise funds. You ain't waiving those. To extent, I don't even know what the calculation of the,
Yeah.
I don't know what the calculation of 1,600, how that's added up. I'm assuming sewer and water aren't in there, because that does have to come straight out of the,
There's none on the building permit.
but as for the others, so building permit, that's no problem. Fire fee, interesting. Police fee, I'm curious. Streets fee is the big one. And so, but they would have the right, just like anybody who's assessed an impact fee, to appeal it and say that I'm only gonna put a lemonade stand on this property, why on earth would I have to pay this amount of impact fees? I am not going to have an impact. I will not lower your level of service, which is the calculation of your impact fees, for the following reasons, blah, 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 blah. That is, they've obviously gotten help with that letter, which definitely does aggravate a bit, where they say, we have no, that's basically what's their back ending, is that process, is why the letter is worded that way. I see why they did it. But you gotta, I mean, normally, Brock and I would say, give me evidence, because that's the only way I could render a decision based upon that evidence that's presented. And then if it holds water, and, I mean, we're doing one right now, Brock and I. If that holds water, fine. Then we would lower your impact fee accordingly. They're asking for it to be 0, all right? It is not as big a process, so to answer your question, which is the one you're concerned about, when it's another governmental entity, no, it does not have the same hoops to jump through as to a residential or commercial use. That said, if you were asking me about sewer fee,
Right.
water,
Right.
arguably streets, but fire, police, those, we have a little bit more wiggle room on those, and streets, to an extent. But you should do the analysis informally, which is what Brock and I do, and you just heard from your chief as to one of them.
Mayor?
And that does, I mean, I get that. So informally, if you guys can do that process yourselves, then at least you have a method behind your madness for the next time somebody asks you for a waiver or a reduction in the fee, even a governmental entity.
So really quick, why is the street fee so high, or is that just high? I mean, is that the new fee status set for?
Our streets fee, our impact fee, that's what it is. I can tell you that
I guess not. It's just relative from what we did, but that one just jumped out at me the most. And this is my 2 cents. You guys are the decision makers. You guys do what you do. Obviously, you're going to need some fire. You're going to need police. And you're going to need some streets. You're going to tell me they're not going to be on any city streets. But I don't care about the fiber fee. I don't care about the building permit fee. Now, if you cut it down a little bit, I don't care. But it's up to you guys. So, Councilwoman Garvey.
Chief Moore, I have a question for you, or whomever can answer this. So let's hypothetically say, obviously, they may someday need fire assistance. You have the ability to charge them, correct? If you had to go out with your city trucks, you have the ability to say, hey, county, you said in this letter you weren't going to need fire. We had to go put out your building or whatever. Could you charge them for that service?
That would, in my mind, that would be something that I'm not familiar with ever having had it, but there are cases where you would have subscription. But other than that, I'm not aware of a mechanism for charging.
What was the word you just said? Subscription?
But, okay, also, to emphasize the fire impact fee. So, the fire impact fee is not 100% for fires that you're going to go out on every day. The fire impact fee is for new growth. And so I guess I could argue why the county wouldn't have an impact on that. They're not bringing in people, they're not bringing in anything else in that respect. So I guess I could argue why they wouldn't have an impact on the fire or the police. I mean, they're not, it's strictly a metal building, so I stick with what I said.
Mr. Kemp, and I agree with that. I think it's just the process that Brock and our legal counsel is working through right now with a separate entity.
Yeah, I heard all about it.
If they work through that same process with the county instead of just like blanket waive, like that process, then I think at that point it's settled and you have something to fall back on other than just a request. It's just a process to work through.
So would we ask the county to put a spreadsheet in place to give us why they wouldn't have these things? Is that what the council wishes?
Sorry, Mayor.
Council, go ahead, Tiff, rather than I got Councilman McCann here.
I just want, Paul, I just have a question for you to clarify. They're building a storage shed. And because they're a county entity and building a storage shed, I think the key is storage, right? Their impact is reduced or they don't have it to our fees. However, if they were to build a ambulance service building, that would qualify as an impact. Am I correct?
Yes.
And then regardless if they're another government entity, they would have to pay the impact fees because they are an impact.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
But because it's a storage shed or a lemonade stand, they don't. Or we can do some waiving here.
Yeah.
Okay, just.
I think it's just a work through the process.
So is that like,
So
Councilman McCain,
didn't you say a little bit ago, though, that with one government entity to another government entity, that none of the fees needed to be charged?
No. I did not mean to convey that. Where I said certainly there is no wiggle room whatsoever with sewer, just because it's a county building, let's say, an ambulance facility, they're gonna have flushing toilets, they're gonna have running sinks.
Right.
They're gonna have electricity, they're gonna have all those things. Absolutely not on those. There's no wiggle room.
Right, no, I understand that with water and whatnot like that, so I apologize for any of the impact fees.
For other fees, including impact fees, it is not uncommon for county entities to waive such fees between each other.
Okay. So I stick with my motion.
So there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan.
Sorry to drag this on. Paul, could you also just, like, for the record, briefly tell us about double taxation with the impact fee to another tax-paying organization paying us? however that may or may not apply?
Double taxation is an argument that is employed. It is a misused term that people think it applies much more. But the theory goes is, here I'll do one that is just this week, where a library district is formed, ending the city library that previously existed. The library district is now going to be across 2 or 3 different counties. And so the question is, if you give all of the city equipment to the library district, are you basically, and then forcing the taxpayers to have to be joining this district as well? Now you're giving away their assets, which their taxable dollars used for that, and now they also have to pay into a library district, and so the argument would be double taxation. That argument is never won that I'm aware of, but that's generally what they're arguing over. So if we forgive fees to the county, but then our citizenry have to pay for, let's say this, like the ambulance, just the ambulance building, we have to now pay as one on your property tax bill, ambulance levy, and all the different levies that are assessed against you. So the argument would be, you're forgiving the fees on the one side, which means the general fund, indirectly the general fund is paying for that, and then we're forcing the citizenry to also pay again on the ambulance district building or something to that effect. That would be the double taxation argument.
But if we didn't waive them and we charged an impact fee to the county, everybody in the county pays county taxes, but they don't pay the city taxes. In this more specific realm, are you tracking what I'm trying to ask?
I don't see how I think you're asking me, is a county resident being double taxed by having to pay an impact fee for their structure over there to us, but they're getting the benefit of our services in that regard. So I still say that's not double taxation.
Okay.
And again, it's a term that people throw around a little bit too easily, and it's usually misused.
Okay. And finally, I think just to kind of make things clean for future stuff, if the council wanted to declare, based on what I'm hearing, that there's no impact in certain categories, all or certain ones, before we proceed with Councilman McCain's vote, but I think that'd be kind of a cleanup on aisle 7 type thing beforehand.
No, I'm gonna leave it like it is, general, just because we don't have to do it.
Ms. Mayor?
Councilman Stokes.
One last comment. It appears to me, through the drawings that we got, I don't believe it to be just a storage shed. That's why I think the fees are reasonable. I think they're gonna put vehicles in there, and they're gonna use the streets, and I think the 10,000 for the streets is quite reasonable. And hence the police and fire, so that's my thoughts.
Okay, where am I at? Motion, seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman McCain?
Aye.
Councilwoman Garvey?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Nay.
Councilman Stokes?
Nay.
Mayor votes nay.
Mayor?
Councilman Brennan?
I'll make a new motion to waive all of the fees except for the fire fee.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Stokes?
May I ask Councilman Brennan a question? You don't want to include police and streets?
Let me ask the police.
Then we'll go to your kitty.
Do you feel like there'll be a police department impact with their 3,000 square foot storage shed?
Looking at existing county facilities, i.e. the jail and the sheriff's department, I would say probably not. We do get called down there occasionally, we prefer calls for service back to the sheriff's departments.
Can you say the last part again? I didn't hear you.
If we get a call for service at the sheriff's department or the jail, we generally defer that to the sheriff's deputies to handle.
Okay. Perfect.
So we could make this an arrangement with this building, or we could answer the call for service. It would probably be something like an alarm, break-in, something like those lines.
Well, they don't have electricity, so there won't be an alarm. What's that? Okay, go ahead.
The streets, will there be a street impact?
I'm gonna say no, because it's already in the area. I mean, everything's surrounded already. I mean, the roads are already there. There's no impact. It's going to infect that they have to. Yeah, I'm gonna say 0. There's a motion. Do I hear a second? Hearing none, the motion dies. Council, what do you guys want to do?
Can I make sure I understand what just happened? Okay, so you made a motion, I seconded it, the rest of you denied it, so why would the council do anything else? The motion stands, right?
Well, we can re-engage it.
Oh, okay. I was like,
We're back at re-engage. We're working on a solution.
Yeah, we're trying to come to an understanding.
Just the fire and the rest of it, then died for lack of a second.
Right, okay, I understand.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Stowe.
I'll make a motion to waive the $1,495 commercial fiber fee for Elmore County.
There's been a motion. Do I hear a second? Hearing none?
Oh, hold on, sorry. The only motion I heard is to waive that. Is that, and then pass the rest of it? Is your motion?
Yep.
Okay, all right, copy that.
They don't need fiber.
Hearing none? Motion dies for lack of second. All right, council, this is what I'm willing to do. I think you keep the fire, since Chief Thompson said there's no police issue. Streets, that one, I think I'm willing to go down to, well, we all know the streets in the side city limits. They're not copacetic, right? And it's for new streets when we're developing, right? That's what these fees are for.
Yes, Mayor. However, I will say that our streets impact fee that's one of the first things that we will come to you to amend, just because we don't have enough classifications that take into account the trips.
So give me a good number, Brock.
It's not that. I would probably say,
Counselor, give me a number. What do you think is fair?
I don't do that.
Mayor,
I'll say 2,500. And then I'll waive all the rest of them.
Becky's asking you.
Oh, sorry.
no, you're fine. I just, I think it's also important to note the process. I'm sure you may know the process, but I talked to Brock pretty extensively and Paul. And so we can hem and haw all day long and say we're gonna charge them $2,500. But when they come back to us and amend it and give us due process of how they do not have an impact, we have one person in this city that approves that, and it's not us. Okay, so why would we want to put that on that one person? It doesn't come back to the council. This does not come back to us. So now what we're doing is we're putting the process on one city employee to deny or approve those fees that we whittled down. I think we need to think about it as a council and make the decision. Because when they come back to us, or when they come back to the city, it goes to Brock.
I'll go with Brennan. What about the other fees other than the fire department fee? That's what I'm willing to do.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman?
let me make another motion. Again,
You bet.
same one.
You bet.
Waive all of the required fees other than the fire fee of $2,273.28.
Do I hear a second?
That one's legally the cleanest, say that.
I don't like randomly picking numbers. That's the ordinance numbers, and we either say there's an impact or there's not.
Unless it comes back to Brock and I later, and then we have to do a calculation that we're working.
So it goes back to you both, not just one person.
No,
It goes
Well, you fit it with him though. You go and
he calls me on the phone and says,
It's more manly than that. However, it should be noted that because I'm not elected, that they can bypass me and say we don't like that. But I potentially under our old ordinance, I know I'm supposed to take into account facts, numbers, and then administer the impact fee
Yeah,
as such.
that's right, was the old ordinance, yeah.
that's why you get paid the big bucks, Brock.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Brennan.
Brock and Fire Chief, what is the intent of a fire impact fee? Is that in our statute or our new ordinance or anything like that? Rather than us guessing what it could be used for?
I can tell you that the impact fee is collected to go towards the capital improvement plan for capital costs. That is the intent.
with each new structure that is constructed, whether it be a residential house or commercial structure or government building or ambulance district building or whatever else you can come up with, that is one more thing that has increased the level of service that the chief is required to adhere to in order to be able to respond. And so the more, I mean, this is just one storage facility, I get that. Make it a storage facility where it's 120 storage units, but all have private property in there. You cannot tell me that it is zero impact on whether it's not so much just the 3,000 foot structure, but it's what's inside that structure that he's required to have certain fire personnel, certain fire units, and so that's the basis of the calculation for a level of service. If it's truly just an empty storage unit, Brock and I would probably modify it the way we are modifying and what we're doing on another scenario. But as far as, I agree with Councilwoman Garvey that I'm not comfortable in arbitrarily selecting $2,500 or something like that without an analysis that, I mean, the other option I suppose you guys can do is thank you for your letter dated blah, 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 wherein you say you have zero impact whatsoever. We have a process, if you truly have zero impact, for you to substantiate that with evidence that we will duly consider and will likely accommodate. Something like that, saying, yeah, we have a process, and then there could be no argument for when the auditors come calling on Paula as to whether this should come out of the general fund, because we've made it, and this is hence why Brock, in a very manly way, called me and asked me for help on making sure that we bridge that gap. Now, back to your question before, it is looser when it's two governmental entities. It is. Not for the enterprise funds, which you know, but it is looser, and it happens a lot more often. It certainly doesn't happen for commercial and residential type uses. The fire one is very clean, because we know that it can happen. And you've heard about streets, police, fiber, all the other ones, which Brock and I would arrive at that decision too.
So, council, do you
Fiber
want?
one threw me, or fire threw me for a little bit of a loop.
I feel like there would be hazardous materials stored in there, which would make a greater demand on the fire department for protection and distances if they have to evacuate, whether it's gasoline or diesel fuel in a car that they're storing there, or drugs that they've seized that may go up in flames, whatever it may be. I'm sticking to my point that I think that there is a fire impact, and that's where I'm leaving it.
Council, do you want Brock?
Okay, Mayor.
Councilman McCain.
I still like the way I did it to begin with, but listening to Attorney, I can understand the reasoning for what he's saying. So I'm going to make a motion to waive all the impact fees all the fees except for the fire of $2,273.28.
He seconded my motion.
Okay. So there's been motion and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman McCain?
Aye.
Councilman Brennan?
Aye.
Councilman Stokes?
Nay.
Councilman Garvey?
Aye.
All right. All right. Recognizing person in the audience, would anybody like to get up and comment for a maximum of 3 minutes? Come on down, sir. Ryan, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm Brett Deering. I'm starting, no, just me. I'm starting a new company called RMW Legal Services of Mountain Home. It's a combination between, well, it's like a paralegal company, and it's all doing civil and criminal, and really doesn't affect any attorneys other than, just, it's all the documentation, and leave the strategy to the attorneys. And it's really came down to, it's helping you find your voice through trial preparation and legal documentation for your life. It's a little long, let me turn it down. But it's like, really it's legal documentation for every hearing from, from preliminary all the way to the main trial. Mainly civil and arbitration services. With a lot of civil action, when it does cross into criminal, that's referred. That's referred. Custody, I'll go down to it. Okay, I can wrap this in 2 minutes. So, okay, here we do. Let's see, criminal, referred over, claim services. That's towards the end. The customers and the people that we want to help are the elderly, the disabled, and the single parents. The people that don't really have their own, they don't really either have the time or the experience, and we just come up with here's all the documentation, here's what we recommend, and here's what the decisions have been in arbitration. Because when I was in insurance and telecom, I sat in arbitration, so I'm going to be getting that. I love that process. It's just it's the best. It really is the most friendly. And preparing for trial. So also other services for elderly that I found over the last couple of years, telecom billing, like Verizon Cellular, everyone's getting totally screwed over by that. It doesn't matter to them, they lose a quarter of their customers. Claims, insurance, it would be Social Security, and as well as Medicare. Bad surgeries, where it leaves them disabled. And attorneys like Doughboy Network, they're not going to do it. They're saying, I'm sorry, it's conflict, we have conflict out. And then, and I'm not trying to talk trash about the attorneys, because I came from a family of judges and attorneys, except for in their own prosecution. And so, disabled, same thing, Medicare, Social Security, telecom, and botched surgery. Single parents, documentation, same. Custody battles, helping them get the approvals for assistance in food and housing too. And that's what the bigger picture is. RMW, you guys are like rock and roll, which is, it stands for Rocky Mountain Way. First it was the Joe Walsh song, and then I heard by Godsmack and go, that's the song. But basically, don't be upset about the past, because it will be better than it used to be. That's what we're going for. And one last thing, we'll wrap it up. That was it. So I'm sorry, I wasn't as prepared, but I haven't done these in a while. So just rmwlegal@outlook.com, and Facebook, Selling Sin for Christ, we're taking it. I'm just kidding. No, RM Legal, RMW Legal. It's taken about 4 years or so to come up with this, just to see the impacts of on all the segments. So I will get you guys also a little more updates. So it was a big 24 hours for me. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the time.
Careful when using the word recommendation.
Yeah.
Get yourself into trouble.
Why is that?
You said documentation and all that, and you say you're going to recommend advice on what to do with your injury claim or whatever. You said recommendation twice in that.
Yeah, I remember that as a claims adjuster. I do appreciate it. I do.
Unauthorized practice of law, you don't want to go there.
Yeah. So I remember that with the when I was doing that as a claims adjuster. Like, when, it never came back. Because not that it didn't come back, it didn't, you know, here's what we recommend, but really, you can do whatever you want. Is how you get around it. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Anybody else like to get up? All right, hearing none. Council, got anything? All right.